Brilliant performance. Brilliant. Give her an Oscar. Let's talk to the chairman of the Bow Group, Ben Harris-Quinney. Hi, Ben.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm good. That sounds like a bad line. Let's hope it's okay. Now, I think we can talk about this in a frank and honest way. I think the question is, we've seen these emails this email correspondence that she took part in 2013, almost 10 years ago, where she was told, look, there's problems with these convictions. There's problems here. And she's replying, oh my, I'm taking this very seriously. I want to see these, da, 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 da. Today, on the stand, under oath, she said, basically everyone else knew. I'm really sorry. I understand that the post office knew, but I didn't. So I think it's fair to say, I'm going to say it right here, I don't believe her. Do you believe her?
Well, look, whether you believe her or not, she's responsible. If you are going to take on a role like that, if you aren't aware of what your organisation is doing and the scene, then it's still your fault because you should be aware of that. And inevitably, when these things happen, everyone says, "Well, we had absolutely no knowledge of this. It was someone else. It wasn't me." Um, and I think that damages the apology in and of itself, because actually I think in these sorts of situations when everyone can see the sheer breadth of the injustice that's gone on, and everyone can see who the people involved were, I think it's better to just say, look,
Yeah.
I'm very sorry, I'm guilty of this, I'm going to step down and withdraw from public life. I
Totally.
think people have a lot more respect for that than trying to shift blame around when it's clear where the blame lies. I think that you could make an argument that the government was aware of this. We know the government was aware of this dating back to 2015. Of course, the post office is essentially a quango. It falls under the jurisdiction of the Department for Business. So you could say that there should have been greater oversight and scrutiny on the government's part. But in terms of the role that Vennells had, there's no question of her responsibility.
Tell you what's good, Ben. Suddenly your sound is crystal clear. It was a bit grainy up until now, so good to have you fully audibly on board. But as I say, you've seen those email correspondence, 2013. Problems being pointed out to her, problems about these convictions, her saying, I need to see these. She literally wrote, I'm taking these very seriously. This is very alarming, etc., etc. She cannot say, I did not know. Clearly,
Well, her,
I mean, what was it? Zahawi claimed that these were the smoking gun. This was the revelation that bosses at the post office knew all about this nearly 10 years ago, and in the time-honoured fashion that we're now finding really is the groove in this country, they orchestrated a cover-up. The post office's reputation was more important than the lives of these poor, wrongly accused sub-postmasters and mistresses whose lives were being ruined.
Yeah. I mean, I think what Vennell said on this was that she did push, but there was pushback, and she was told she was being too curious or that she shouldn't concern herself with all of these matters. But again, the role of a chief executive is to be in charge, is to say, I want to know about this, I need to know about this. And look, the, the question remains out there. Did she know? I suspect she did. Personally, other people can draw their own view, but it discredits her apology. She's in tears at the stand, but you've got to think about the as you say the heartache and the pain and the suffering, emotional as well as financial in terms of livelihood that all of the victims of this have endured, and it's not good enough in that context.
It really isn't. As I say, coming on the back of the blood scandal, the infected blood scandal, and the cover up the NHS organised, and we know about Lucy Letby, the cover up. It's always the instinct, isn't it, on the part of a certain kind of executive, i.e., most of them, that when something like this happens, when these massive problems become clear to them, their instinct is to cover up, protect the reputation of the organisation from which they are earning one hell of a lot of money. Now, in view of that, I mean, again, along with the infected blood scandal, the public are baying for people to be punished for this. Now, I don't want to gang up on Paula Vennells, and by the way, I'm being probably over cynical about the tears. I'm sure she's terribly upset, and she deserves to be upset. So I don't think they're fake tears, but I think she's crying for herself more than anyone else, and well, she should. But surely she and all the other executives and the detectives who work for the post office, I mean, they deserve to be investigated by the police. They deserve to have their collars felt, don't they?
Absolutely. And I think it questions the structure as well, because the way the post office is set up is that there is a board. It sits under as I say, it's essentially a quango. It sits under the business department. But I think that's where I think that's the only place this can go in terms of looking for additional responsibilities. Why didn't government act? We know they knew about it since 2015. We don't know exactly how long the post office organizationally knew about it, but obviously before then. So we're talking a decade plus that this has been going on. There were some great journalistic work that brought a lot of it to light, and some great investigative work also. But I think the additional question you could ask beyond those that are sort of in the dock at the moment is, what was the government doing? What was Sajid Javid doing at the time? What was David Cameron doing at the time? Did they know about it? And what action did they take? And why did they choose not to take action and to bring this to public light? Because it was part of the burden for the victims. They've obviously had their livelihoods completely disrupted, but they've then had to fight to get justice on this for a very long period of time, which is also a very difficult experience to go through. And I would imagine that a lot of people probably didn't believe them. Maybe even their friends and family didn't believe them, and they've finally been vindicated. But part of the scandal is how long it took, and how little oversight there was to what is essentially a public institution.
And whether or not she did this deliberately, I think she did, but that I'm entitled to my opinion. It may not be true, but I'm entitled to think that. I'm entitled to think that she was lying through her teeth today, because I think she was. She has questions to answer about her continued insistence that it was like computer says no. See, the problem with Paula Vennells and all the post office executives, and as you say, Ben, various people in government, was you had, what was it, over 700 people telling the same story. This is something. This isn't. We didn't do this. Must be the computer. I did not commit this crime. I did not take this money. I really don't know how. 700 people, and they said you must all be lying because the computer cannot be wrong. The computer was wrong. Now that corporate decision that it was all down to the computer, I think, isn't really a blind faith in the laptops and the computer systems. It's that course of action protected the reputation of the post office.
Well, you can clearly see evidence that this was a closing of ranks. I don't think that's even in question. I think most people can see that they knew there was a problem and they closed ranks and tried to cover it up. Exactly who knew and exactly who was ultimately responsible is what still needs to be determined. But again, you've got to look to the people at the top, because even if they didn't know, they should have known. It was their responsibility to know, and so that doesn't assuage them of any blame at all whatsoever. And again, when you look at the time period this has occurred, of course, everyone's desperately sorry now, and they're doing their mea culpa.
Yeah.
But why didn't they do it before? What's happened is they've been caught, and now they're very sorry, as you say. Maybe they're sorry for themselves. Maybe I think most people are probably genuinely sorry for other people, but they obviously took a choice at the time to destroy the lives of an awful lot of people in order to protect the reputation of an organization, which was clearly the wrong moral decision.
Yeah, in terms of Paula Vennells and the gang, you passed me the world's smallest violin. It's the victims I feel sorry for. I do not shed a single tear for Paula Vennells or any of the other people involved in this revolting Disgusting miscarriage of justice. I can't let you go, Ben, without your feelings about the tumultuous events earlier today when Rishi suddenly called an election in the pouring rain, soaking Sunak. Very bad optics. But my question is, what do you think spooked him into doing this? Because there's definitely no suggestion there are any plans at all to do this. David Cameron was in Albania, for God's sake, and got called back. Sunak sent out one of his goons to do the rounds this morning, and I can't remember the guy's name, but he went on to the BBC and said, no, I can tell you absolutely no case, there will be no chance of a summer election whatsoever. A couple of hours later, there's old soaking Sunak in the rain saying, here we come July the 4th. What went on, do you think?
Well, the rumours are that his leadership was under pressure from within the Conservative Party. Certainly it is true, and I know this directly, that there were a number of leadership campaigns that were looking at potentially making a leadership challenge against Sunak. But I think the general consensus was it wouldn't make sense before the election because, everyone's just going to go down with the ship. There is a rumour, as I say, that the letter threshold with the 1922 committee that would trigger a leadership election was either extremely close or had been reached. And that's what motivated Sunak to do it. But again, a lot of this could have been predicted. I'm actually quite surprised it didn't happen in the aftermath of the May elections, which was a slow-moving train wreck. And by being forced into this position in the summer, I mean they pretty much guaranteed defeat. I think the idea that Sunak, you might remember his 5 pledges and 5 tests. I think he's failed on 4 out of 5, and the other one was a natural ebb and flow of the market. They haven't got a track record to show for. They know now don't have time to do anything to improve their lot. They're 22 points behind on the last poll. They've just accepted defeat. The problem from the British public's point of view is we've had 4 elections in the last decade. We've had a continuation of so many policies that the British public keep wanting change, like mass immigration, the small boats and so forth. And we're about to get a new Prime Minister in Keir Starmer that, might be a different person to Rishi Sunak, but the policies will pretty much stay the same. And I think what's happening, if you look at the polls and you look at the voting intentions, isn't that people are suddenly in love with Labour. It's that they're out of love with the political system.
They've had enough. They're in the mood.
Well, I'm one of them. I'm one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell you what, by the way, interesting what you said about the 1922 committee, because in the last hour or so it's emerged that Sunak has no plans to meet his backbenchers, who I know for a fact, many of whom are absolutely seething about this, absolutely furious. He doesn't want to talk to them. But in the end, what really worries me, Ben, is that's a 5,000 quid suit completely ruined. So that really is the tragedy of the day. Great to talk to you, Ben. Thanks very much for your time. Ben Harris-Quinney, chairman of the Bow Group, talking about Paula Vennells there.